Joining me on the programme, the Deputy Leader of the Conservative Group on Croydon Council and Shadow Cabinet Member for Finance, Councillor Cllr Cummings. Good morning.
Good morning, Vanessa.
I don't know whether you heard my conversation on the radio with the leader. What did you make of that before we talk about everything else?
I'm afraid that interview was typical of what we've been seeing in Croydon for years. No answers and no real accepting of responsibility. What you experienced was how we felt in meetings, except that Labour were chairing the meetings as well, so it was even worse.
I mean, one of the things that I thought was quite astounding about it was this kind of, yes, we acknowledge that this is a challenge. And it's, hang on, wait a minute. You've just had to file for bankruptcy. You're £1.5 billion in debt. You were told so by your own auditors 3 years ago. What do you mean you acknowledge? Of course you acknowledge. It's already happened. It was as if everything was happening in a bizarrely slowed up tempo, as if the conclusion hadn't already been reached. It was most discombobulating, the conversation, because, you can't acknowledge something after it's already happened and you filed for bankruptcy. The filing is the fact, isn't it? I found it very strange. I don't know what you think.
Yes, I mean, this sort of it's almost a denial of their own part in creating the situation that Croydon finds itself in. And this isn't new. We've been warning about this impending disaster for years in Croydon. And, it's shocking the position we find ourselves in. This is one of London's largest councils, only recently described by Sadiq Khan as his hidden gem. I expect he wishes it had been hidden somewhat better now. But, we shouldn't be in this position. We're in it because of decisions that were made quite deliberately by the Labour cabinet that included Hamida.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you this, though. As you know, the auditors, Grant Thornton, said last week that you, the Conservative opposition, also had a responsibility here. They say that you should have questioned. You've just said you did, but they said you should have questioned what was going on. The audience said that the auditors said there wasn't enough proper scrutiny. If there wasn't enough proper scrutiny and they found that to be the case, that's your fault, isn't it?
We have to accept some level of responsibility for what we could do. But there's a big disconnect here between what Grant Thornton looked at. They looked at the minutes of these meetings.
Yes.
And anyone that listened to the meeting last night will have heard me interject right at the very start of the meeting that the way the minutes are written up, they don't include any of the questions that are asked. Every question that was asked in those cabinet meetings is not included in the minutes, which was part of the culture.
We keep hearing about this culture. What do you mean? What does it mean, part of the culture? The culture was what? What was the culture?
Well, if I give you a specific example.
Go on, please do. I'd love a specific example. That would be bliss.
Okay, so this happened in February of this year, where they were discussing the finances for the coming year. So, I mean, absolutely irrelevant. It's my job to ask questions about that sort of thing.
Yes.
So I was there. I don't get a vote on the cabinet, but I can go in and I can ask questions.
Right.
So I was asking questions about the level of borrowing, the sustainability of that, whether they were the forecast that they were making, whether they were going to be able to achieve their budgets, use of transformation funding, basically all things that are listed in Grant Thornton's report. I asked a series of questions on those.
Yes.
The response I got from the leader was to describe me as immature, that I was uninformed, and that I was scaremongering by suggesting that the council couldn't go on this way.
Is that all on the record? Have you got the proof that you said that?
Yes, that is on video, and it's on the council's website.
Right.
In fact, we in order to demonstrate that we were asking these questions and that they've been excised from the records, we've been putting these videos up on the web, on our website.
Oh, have you?
So
Okay.
can see them.
Right.
Because, we're just as annoyed as the residents about what's happened here, but it didn't have to be this way. They were warned.
When you say they deliberately, because that's what you did just say, made these kinds of decisions, when you say deliberately, what do you mean? You mean deliberately not caring if they couldn't balance the books, deliberately trying to plunge their own council into bankruptcy? What's deliberate about it? What was deliberate?
No, they didn't deliberately bankrupt the council, but their agenda here was about more than just financial investments. They have an agenda with regard to intensifying the level of building within Croydon. If you look at the places where they were building and things that they were trying to build, there's a political agenda that underlies this. And when you try and use a political agenda on financial investment decisions and speculating in the property market, You've got to be really good to make money in the property market to start
that's
with.
one of the things I've been trying to say all day. What is the background in property deals? What is the background in amassing a property empire? What is the background in hotel management? What is the background in drive-through retail complexes? And the answer seems to be absolutely nothing at all. Do you think that the new leader, who is really part of the old regime, so the word new is very misleading in this context, but do you think the new leader has the expertise, the background, the qualities needed to excavate a council from £1.5 billion worth of debt?
Well, if you take the example I gave you earlier of that cabinet meeting, where and that scenario, whilst it's happening, Hamida Ali was sat in that meeting.
Right.
She had a vote on that in that cabinet.
Yeah.
She heard the warnings and she sat in silence whilst the leader attempted to bully me for raising these concerns. Now, either she didn't understand or she wasn't strong enough to stand up and take the warnings, or she agreed with what was going on. And for any of those things, she shouldn't be leading the council now. You've got to ask questions about whether she is the person to lead us out of this. And personally, no, I don't believe she is. Well,
thank you very much for talking to us. That's Councillor Jason Cummings, Conservative councillor at Croydon. I mean, as we just said, he was among the people that Grant Thornton, the auditor, said should have taken more responsibility, should have asked questions. He said they did. You're listening to BBC Radio London. Coming up from 10, Robert will be talking about a new book called Bird's Eye London.